The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the chief priests and the elders of the people, "Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug a winepress in it, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the harvest time had come, he sent his slaves to the tenants to collect his produce. But the tenants seized his slaves and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other slaves, more than the first, and they treated them in the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and get his inheritance.' So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Now when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants?" They said to him, "He will put those wretches to a miserable death and lease the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the produce at the harvest time." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read in the scriptures, 'The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone'? This was the Lord's doing, and it is amazing in our eyes. Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people that produces the fruit of the kingdom." The Gospel of the Lord. So just remember, if the Premier decides that masks are obligatory in public, then masks will also be obligatory in church. He's giving hints. So if you don't have masks, it might be good to get one ready, because chances are, if not next week, then the following week, this will become mandatory in our province, and it will then be mandatory in church as well. Another thing to keep in mind is that as much as we'd like to stop at times and chat with a fellow parishioner, it's not the time for that. Maybe a year from now might be, but it's important that we not be stopping, and if you want to chat with someone, better to pick up the phone and call them, and not to be doing it here in church. This time of year, in normal times, parts of the world like Germany, it's a big time of celebration. Oktoberfest in the southern parts of the country, where beer is produced. Now I suspect celebrations will be trimmed back significantly this year, if not outright canceled, I believe. And in areas where wines are produced, it's also a time of big celebration, bringing in the harvest. And people all come and they bring in as many workers as they can to get the grapes and to prepare them. Now, much of it is done by machinery now, but much also still has to be done by human hands. And every wine-producing town has its own songs, ballads about the bringing in of the vines, the grapes from the vines. And some of these ballads are quite ancient. They're lost, their origins lost in the midst of the local history. The prophet Isaiah knew about such customs. And so today he begins with almost a ballad-like song celebrating the fruit of the vine. "Let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He dug it and cleared it of stones and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it and hewed out a wine vat in it. He expected it to yield grapes. Round about this time, people listening to the prophet probably thought, for once, something friendly and positive and not negative. But it yielded wild grapes. And now inhabitants of Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. And so the prophet was using something the people knew, these ballad songs that local communities used to celebrate the bringing in of the grapes, and using it as a warning to the people. Because God, he says, the vineyard is the people of Israel, a chosen vine, as our responsorial psalm puts it. You brought a vine out of Egypt. You drove out the nations. You planted it. It sent out its branches to the sea and to the great river. But now you've broken down its walls. All who pass by pluck its fruit. The boar from the forest ravages it, and all that move in the field feed on it, because it's become an abandoned vineyard. And so the psalm asks, turn again, Lord of hosts, look down from heaven and see, have regard for this vine, the stock that your right hand has planted. Restore us. Let your face shine upon us. That's beautiful imagery. Let your face shine upon us so that we may be saved. And Jesus picks up that theme of Isaiah in today's gospel. Again, it's part of his warning, exhortation given to the chief priests and the elders of the people. Another parable. A landowner, his vineyard, just like Isaiah says, puts a fence around it to protect it, digs a wine press in it, builds a watchtower, leases it to tenants, and travels to another country. And when the harvest time comes, he expects an abundant harvest, but he doesn't get it. When his tenants come to collect the harvest, they beat one, kill another, and stone another, and he sends more. These are the prophets he's sending, and the same continues to happen. So finally he says, I will send my son. At least they will respect him. But when the tenants saw the son, they said, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and get his inheritance. So they seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. Jesus is looking ahead to what, and not exactly a vineyard involved, but to what is going to happen to him, the Son sent by the Father. And so Jesus says the vineyard then will be taken away from those, and it will be given to others. The stone rejected by the builders has become the cornerstone. It will be given to a people that produces the fruits of the kingdom. Last week, he told us who some of them were. Prostitutes, tax collectors. They're responding to the gospel, and the religious leaders are not.